Okay, looks like we are good to go. Am I good to start?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and call to order the Planning Commission meeting for tonight, June 2nd, 2020. As we discussed last meeting, one of our planning commissioners needed to offer his resignation. So tonight we only have 6, and I see that all 6 of us are present. So we will go ahead and proceed with our first item, which is the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting of May 19th, 2020. Any discussion or comments or motions regarding this first business item? I think Corbin was trying to make a motion, but he was on mute. Just double check that. Yeah, let me get you to do that just vocally for the record there.
I make a motion to approve those minutes.
Perfect. And a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Thomas is who has offered. So we have a motion by Commissioner England, seconded by Commissioner Thomas. Any discussion to the motion? All right, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Commissioner Shelton, I can't see nor hear you, so I don't know if we're getting a response from you. Commissioner Shelton, can you hear us? Due to technical difficulties, we'll call that a 5-0 with 1 not voting. I think that will stand for us, right, Mr. Murray?
Yes, that's a good way to do it.
Okay, perfect. Then we will move along. If Commissioner Shelton can hear us and happens to show up, just wave your hand at me, let me know you're here so we can acknowledge. Moving along to our second business item is the B. Jackson Carmco 2 at 7022 South Airport Road. Just a review of street-facing bay doors in an M1 zone. Do we need to have the applicant present this, or are we okay just to let Mr. Page run with this one, since it's just a business item?
It would be appropriate to just have staff do it.
Okay, yeah, we'll go ahead and turn the time over to Mr. Page then for the presentation.
Okay. So we have an ordinance on our books that requires that street-facing loading doors be reviewed by the Planning Commission after they are reviewed by the Design Review Committee. And the Design Review Committee reviewed these street-facing bay doors just last week, and we received 1 comment. And the ordinance as written requires that building loading areas which face a front or corner side yard, which this does, and it's in the M1 zone, may be approved by the Planning Commission upon a finding that the loading area is adequately screened from public view with landscaping. Additional landscaping shall be installed over and above the minimum zoning requirements to sufficiently screen loading areas from public view as determined by the Planning Commission. So this is the screen wall plan showing a pretty nice wall fronting Airport Road, and then the road extending around the corner to 70th South. Here is the screen wall elevations. The first is the north view from 70th South. You can see a fence and then some trees, and the loading areas are in this area. So we're looking south from 70th South. And then this depiction down at the bottom is from Airport Road looking west. And the doors would be on this south facing portion of the building. So it looks really pretty good. as long as the trees are big. I guess that's the only concern that I would see is how long will it take for these trees to grow and how durable will they be? Because it looks great while they're mature or in good healthy condition. But if they're not, that could be problematic, just relying on these trees for screening or artistic compatibility. And this last slide shows the depiction of what the wall will look like, which I believe is rather attractive. So those are the comments that I have to make. And I guess the Planning Commission now has the opportunity to make a finding if the proposed landscaping is sufficient to screen these street facing loading areas.
So Matt, this is Larry. Can I make one comment?
No, I didn't give you any permission on that. Go ahead.
I think that what the applicant's done meets the intent of the ordinance. There's trees are planted small and they have to grow. And so we reasonably logically would assume that they would grow bigger. And so I would not make a finding to deny it based upon the immaturity of a tree. So that's my comment.
Sure, I don't think that would have been a question, but I appreciate the point on that. Anybody have any questions for staff or comments? Jay, I see you took off your mute, so go ahead.
I just want to confirm that that is an 8-foot wall. Hello?
Ken, did you hear that?
No, I did not. Sorry.
Commissioner Thomas asked if it's an 8-foot wall.
Oh, it is 6.
Okay.
And we only allow 8-foot walls on rear properties abutting an arterial street. So, and this is a collector road. It's on.
That was going to be my next question.
I was looking at the elevation and it looked like there were 2 different heights on the wall. Is that just an optical illusion to me, or like one section of the wall was lower and another section of the wall appeared to be higher? On the left, it looks like the wall is lower. Can you clarify on that for me?
It does appear to be that way with these elevations. But the only dimension that we have is a 6 feet right here.
Perhaps we can just make an addendum to.
Well, what the ordinance says is that it has to be at least 6 foot. I don't think we need to make a condition. We just need to follow the ordinance and make sure the applicant follows that.
Perhaps that's why Commissioner Thomas thought that the one side might be 8 feet and the other 6. The elevations don't look correct to me.
The applicants are raising their hands if you want to ask.
Yeah, let me just jump in there and I can do that. Is that who have Flora and Gary Taylor? Those are applicants on this one?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe I can. It won't let me do it.
Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, looks like we've got you, Gary. Gary, go ahead.
Okay, you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes, it is a 6-foot wall all the way around. It is consistently 6 foot. If it's shown it different, it's not drawn correctly. I apologize for that. But it is a 6-foot wall, solid, pre-manufactured concrete wall.
Thank you for the clarification.
You betcha.
Thank you.
If you have any other questions, let me know.
Commissioner, Chair Quinney, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
I'm just seeing, because of this week, I just see that as a graffiti target. how easy is it to clean graffiti off of that rock face? Looks variegated or has some, you know, dimension to it. How easy is it to clean graffiti off of that?
The wall is sealed, so it will be able to be cleaned.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a handful of questions, if I may.
Go right ahead.
So we're looking at this wall. It's maybe one comment to staff that would have helped me substantially in reviewing this is we don't actually see a landscaping plan. We have the screen wall plan, which says that landscaping is approximate. The other thing that we don't have on here is a grading plan. And I think that that comes into play, at least with a 6-foot wall, if there's an intentional means of grading the site a little bit higher and the wall or sidewalk lower to where that 6-foot wall wouldn't shield the bay doors quite as directly. Am I making sense? Following me on that?
Yes,
We
you are.
did submit all those.
For some reason, at least I don't have them. I just have the exhibit A, B, and C that's that you've shown here in the staff report.
Right. The architect and us, we did submit those for your review. I don't know if they got attached to your packet or not.
The first screen should be the landscaping that was submitted.
Mr. Tyler, can I interject and just ask a question maybe that you can answer?
Sure.
Is this lot pretty level? Is there elevation changes on it?
It has a gradual slope from west to east. So,
okay.
Yeah, it will be, by the time we get down to the building, we're going to be about level with the road.
Okay.
We'll be up just a little in order to make grading work. But yeah, it will.
We're talking airport road, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we'll be about a foot or so above curb and gutter. So it's not going to be substantial. It's just enough to get positive drainage for rainwater to flow away from the building and then catch it in the storm drains. And then we have an underground detention basin that we flow into.
Great. Thank you.
You betcha. Yeah. And if I can just add also, this is a very intense, we actually have a rendering of the landscaping that I thought we had submitted, but it is a very I mean, your code requires, extensive landscaping. And the owner has gone ahead and gone above and beyond, I feel, to the fact of they've spent almost $250,000 on landscaping, and the fence is about $80,000 to $90,000. So he's put in over $300,000 just in screening and in beautifying the road, the view from the road, if that makes sense.
I think this is a good site plan. As I take a look around the area, I'm a stone's throw from this. I don't necessarily see any issues with it. There's really no residential development across the street that's going to see this. So to that end, I don't have a problem with the way that the site plan is set up. I have two last questions. One is from the design review committee. It was noted on here regarding a sidewalk along 7000 South. The second question has to do with the landscaping. And as we're talking about putting in all of these trees, and I see some other colors, it doesn't say exactly what these are. Is this going to be a water-wise style landscaping throughout this?
It is. We'll have rock mulch and we'll have a drip system that helps in watering just the plants, and all the plants are obviously, you know, water wise, and there's some nice bushes, and so, but yeah, it's all taking that into account.
Okay. And how
as
about
well.
the sidewalk?
There is
Can I
not a
just interject?
sidewalk. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted really quickly, I think we're getting a little bit too far off. If I'm not mistaken, we're only here to discuss the screening. We talked about the wall and we talked about the trees, right? So while Spencer's comment is interesting to note, I don't think the sidewalk has anything to do with what we're here to talk about tonight. I just want to make sure I'm on the right track with that, Larry, or Duncan.
Yes.
Can one of you confirm that?
That's absolutely right.
I think we've just gone too far off into the weeds on this one, and we should probably just entertain the motion regarding the screening that we've already discussed. Unless anybody has any other questions about screening, I don't mean to stop it at Ammon, but I think we're just a little bit far off the track here on this one.
Yeah, you're right, man. We're not reviewing a site plan, just the screenings, all you're reviewing, so.
So does staff review the site plan? I mean, it doesn't have to come back for a site plan review, right?
That's correct. Staff reviews the site plan and industrial projects.
Right, which has been reviewed at this point.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Thank you.
Based on the information and findings set forth in this staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission approve the architecture and screening of street-facing bay doors for B. Jackson Condo 2 at 7022 South Airport Road.
I will second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Hatch, seconded by Commissioner England. Any discussion to the motion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it appears that we are unanimous on this one. Thank you, Mr. Tyler, for your input on this point. Moving on to our first public hearing. Sorry, we have the Bingham Barnes Condo Plat. Is 6076 West, 9860 South, in a preliminary minor subdivision condo conversion plat in an M1 zone. Stephen Barnes is our applicant. I just want to make one note before we turn the time over to our applicant to speak while he's getting brought up. Larry spoke with me a little bit earlier and just asked that we make sure that it's part of this approval process that we discuss a preliminary and final approval on this for the plat, not just the preliminary that's noted in the staff packet there. Do we have Mr. Barnes promoted forward so he can speak?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Perfect. The floor is yours, sir.
I don't know what to say. I'm here to basically answer questions, I think.
Is there anything you want to share about the project? I think this is the first time we're seeing this.
No, it's just a duplex type building that we built 10 years ago. And we and another party bought the building jointly, and we, over the last 10 years, we've verbally owned each side individually, but we just want to legalize it and have a formal condominium.
Okay, sounds good. We'll turn the time over then to, assuming there's no questions for the applicant, we can turn the time over to Mr. Page to give us the staff version of this, and then we can discuss this. We'll bring the questions back to you, Mr. Barnes, if we have any after the conversation here.
Okay.
Mr. Page, it's all yours.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So for a subdivision plat, particularly a condominium conversion plat, the ordinance requires that the Planning Commission approve completed subdivision plat, make sure that the subdivision plat for subdivision complies with all the applicable requirements of this code. And if the Planning Commission finds that the proposed subdivision plat does not meet the requirements of this code, it shall not approve the application. And the basic requirements for condominium sub-conversion shall be that the proposed landscaping improvements of the common open space, the intended use of the open space, and it provides enough detail of how the improvements will be financed and the area will be maintained. It also requires that or allows that the Planning Commission can place any additional conditions or restrictions to ensure the development and maintenance of the desired character of the subdivision. And finally, the condo conversion needs to assure that the continuation of common areas will be used in accordance with the plans approved by the Planning Commission. The owner developer shall grant to the city an open space easement on or over the common open space prior to the recording of the final plat, which easement will not give the general public the right to access, but will provide that the common open space remains open. And in summary, that a condominium conversion needs to be subject to state and local codes. Again, it needs to ensure the maintenance of the common open space. In this case, there's relatively little common open space, but it still needs to be addressed in the application. And specifically, condominium conversion needs to address the conditions of the property, such as its age, its structural elements, the water and sewer service, paving, parking, and circulation, and all known deficiencies and all known conditions which may require repair or replacement within 5 years. I guess that's so that the would-be owners of the new condominiums are appraised of what condition the property is in and what they expect to need to be serviced within 5 years. So that's brought to the forelight for everyone's consideration. Here's aerial view of the existing building, and like Mr. Barnes said, they just want to formally convert the two sides of this building into 2 condominiums with with the outside particularly being common area and the inside being communized, if that's a word, or the individual condo owners will own the inside and the common area will be in the outside. The proposed preliminary plat does specify the parking, make sure that there's adequate parking for a number of employees and the office space or warehouse space as it may be. But staff suggests that there be a little more narrative of how the maintenance of this common area will be maintained and what the current conditions of the property is. That's my understanding of how we follow the state code and our own ordinance with the conversion into a condominium. Again, here's the more detailed division of the area to be made into 2 condominiums. And I'd be glad to try to answer any questions you might have at this time. And I'm glad that Mr. Barnes is here to address any questions as well.
Okay, any questions for staff? Commissioner Thomas.
Yes, is there going to be a COA created to incur the costs of the mutual sewer, water lines, upkeep of the maintenance on the exterior?
Maybe Mr. Barnes could answer that question.
Okay, yes, there is, and I think it addresses just about every issue that Kent has raised as far as code compliance.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, this is our first public hearing, so we will go ahead and open this up to the public. If there's anybody here who wishes to speak on this item, please feel free to raise your hand. Okay, and seeing none, we'll close the public hearing for this item. Bring this back to the Planning Commission for any further discussion or a motion.
I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Please do.
Based on the information and findings set forth in this staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission approve the preliminary condominium conversion plat and the final
Yes.
conversion plat for Bingham, subject to adherence to all current City of West Jordan code requirements. Does that suffice? No attorney.
I think
Yes,
so.
that's good. Yes.
Sounds good. Sorry, I had my mute on. That sounds good.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
I'd second that.
Okay, perfect. So we have a motion by Commissioner England, seconded by Commissioner Shelton. Any discussion to the motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we are unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Barnes, for coming and presenting to us tonight. Wish you luck in your plans there. Moving on to our final item here is the West Jordan Engineering Policies and Design Criteria. This is a recommendation to City Council to approve the updated landscape and irrigation policies and design criteria, appendices, and other related provisions with citywide applicability. Obviously, the City of West Jordan is the applicant. Mr. Nelson, are you here, or were you letting Duncan do this one? I haven't seen him, so I'm assuming it's you, Duncan.
I can do that. So if you remember recently that we first put before you a recommendation to the council to reapprove all of the existing engineering guidelines you had at one of your last meetings, and that was just to kind of make sure that everything had been gone through the whole process of planning commission public hearing to council, which over the last several years has become the way to adopt these kinds of standards through treating them as land use regulations. Now what's happening is systematically, especially the engineering division, is going through different parts of the engineering standards and doing some substantive revisions. This sets of changes deals primarily with landscaping, grass strips, and those kinds of things, parks, but basically it's all city-owned property. I talked a little bit to the parks superintendent to make sure that there were standards for city-owned property and also for property that is scheduled to become city-owned property. So if a developer is putting in some grass strips, or maybe he's putting in a park that becomes dedicated or turned over to the city later, then of course it's built according to city standards when it's initially constructed. This also includes all of our own capital facilities projects and those kind of things. So unlike some of the other revisions in the engineering standards, maybe to sewer and water and storm drains that you're going to see over the next several months to a year or so, that'll deal more with private property. This set of substantive changes deals exclusively with changes to either currently city-owned infrastructure or infrastructure that will become city-owned at some juncture. So you've probably had a chance to review what some of those kinds of things are, but like I say, they deal with issues like parks, grass strips, those kinds of things. So.
Perfect. Any questions for Mr. Murray? Okay, this is our last public hearing, so we'll go ahead and open this up for any possible public comment. Just feel free to wave your hand at me if you have something you need to share. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing for this item. Bring this back to the Planning Commission for further discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Please do.
I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to approve the landscape and irrigation policies and design standards and landscape and irrigation drawings for West Jordan City.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hatch.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner England. Any discussion to the motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, we are unanimous on this one. And that brings us to the conclusion of tonight's agenda. Thanks, guys, for coming and hanging out with us again on Zoom. It's been fun. Entertain a motion to adjourn here.
I'll make that motion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thomas. We are adjourned until the 16th? Yeah, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Have a good night.
All right, see ya.